You've probably heard it before, just break the body down into shapes, so you try it, you draw a box here, a circle there, maybe a cylinder, but when you try to actually build a human body, it still feels stiff, awkward, off. I've been there. For the longest time, anatomy felt like a giant puzzle, way too many pieces, none of them fitting. But here's the truth, I was overcomplicating everything. In this video I will show you the method that finally made the human body click for me, and it all starts with something ridiculously simple. Boxes. Let me explain why. But real quick, if you end up finding this video helpful, consider giving it a like and subscribing. It seriously helps the channel grow, especially now that we're just getting started. Anyways, the way I draw the human body can be divided into 3 steps: the mannequin, sculpting, and the details. And to be clear, this isn't an anatomy masterclass. We're not memorizing every muscle. This is about building a strong enough structure that looks convincing and lets you draw confidently without needing deep anatomy knowledge. Let's start with step 1, the box. Now, you might be saying, but Fluence, I want to draw cool poses like this one here, not some dumb box. Well, the pose I just showed you, it all started from boxes. If you want to draw dynamic, believable characters, especially in anime or stylized art, learning how to draw and think in 3D using boxes is the most powerful shortcut. It will help you with anatomy, proportions, perspective, even values later on. And maybe you're thinking, yeah, I already know how to draw a box, can we move on? But do you? Let's test it real quick. Draw a box facing directly forward towards you. Easy, right? It's just a square. Now tilt it downwards slightly. Now rotate it to the right. Now draw a circle on each top corner. Now stretch a cylinder out of each circle, and the ones in the back should taper toward the horizon. You feeling confident yet? Here's the thing, drawing a cube is more than just drawing a box. Boxes live in perspective, their lines aren't parallel, they converge to a vanishing point. So when you attach shapes to a box, above, behind, or beside it, those two must follow the perspective. That's why practicing these spatial shifts is so good for training your brain to see in 3D. By using boxes, you'll also train your brain to see overlaps in shapes, their rotations, and distances from one another. But coming back to the topic, you might be asking yourself, why do boxes matter if I want to draw anime? Because the mannequin, the core of the human figure, is mostly made of boxes. This right here is Ruben Lara's 3D model of the Box Mannequin. You can find a link to his website in the video description. The head is made with a box, the torso a box, the pelvis box-ish, then spheres for joints and cylinders for arms and legs. Hands become simplified blocks, and the feet are like these tapered wedges. Now let's talk about proportions for a second. Most artists use the head as a unit of measurement. A typical body is around 7 to 8 heads tall and about 2 heads wide. The midpoint of the figure, right around the bottom of the pelvis, is where the legs begin. As a general guide, the torso is about a head and a half tall, and the pelvis is just over 1 head tall. But don't stress too much about the exact measurements, proportions will vary depending on the character's design, gender, or even if they're in perspective. In this example here, the hand is huge compared to the head. What matters more is that the pelvis doesn't go past the halfway mark, and that the gap between the torso and the pelvis stays relatively small. Keep it simple and consistent. So from the top to the bottom, we got the head, the torso, the pelvis which ends halfway, the upper legs, which you gotta make sure to leave some space between them since they aren't actually connected, then you get the knees, the lower legs, and then the feet. Also a little tip, the upper and lower leg should be about the same length. Even if your character's height varies, these divisions keep things consistent. For the arms, the shoulders lie at the top of the ribcage, then you got the elbows which land just below the ribcage. The wrists fall at the bottom of the pelvis, and the hands usually reach around the middle of the thigh. A good rule of thumb is that your character's hand should be able to cover their crotch when standing straight. If they do, proportions are probably fine. Now, there are differences in how we draw the torso and hips for males and females. Female hips tend to be wider, giving off more of this trapezoid shape. The male hips are narrower. I just used a basic box. For torsos, make the male box a little broader and the female a bit narrower. Both the torso and pelvis tilt forward slightly, more noticeable in females. This means that when you draw them as boxes, you'll often see the underside of the torso box and the top of the pelvis box. Now, to connect the torso and the pelvis, you just have to add a cylinder between the two. Before you go full imagination mode, try tracing real references with the mannequin shapes, then draw them again beside it, freehanding it. I know you're probably desperate on drawing characters, but I'd suggest to focus on the mannequin first for a bit, get comfortable, and if you're bored of drawing the same shapes, spice it up by adding some details or putting your OCs on top. Now keep your poses short, 5-minute max. If you can't finish, just move on. And if you're really stuck, as I said before, just try to trace the reference first, then redraw it on your own. And if you can finish it even faster, well, that's awesome. And yes, early on, using boxes will make things look stiff, but with practice, you'll integrate flow into the mannequin using the line of action, that invisible S-like curve behind every pose. Every box line is a perspective line, remember that. Even if the vanishing point is off screen, your brain will start to see it, and the lines have to converge that way. Now, you can just eyeball it, so don't give it too much mind, but also, only try drawing poses you'll actually use. Practicing super weird ones might not be the best use of your time. Focus on standing, walking, sitting, stretching, things you'd use on your art. Also keep in mind, real poses are often imbalanced in interesting ways. People rarely stand in perfect symmetry. Their weight shifts to one leg, one shoulder drops, or the spine subtly curves. That natural imbalance brings life and believability to a pose, and the mannequin should account for it. If you're not sure how the boxes should rotate, try this. Stand up, stretch a little, and twist your body. Which part rotates more, your torso or your pelvis? Probably the torso, right? Feel that range of motion, memorize it, get an idea on your head about it. The next time that you're studying a pose or sketching one, keep that in mind. You'll notice that most rotations aren't as extreme as you might think, and most of them come from the torso. These subtle shifts that add life to the pose. Now here's where things get spicy. Sculpting for me just means adding simple anatomy shapes on top of the mannequin. We're not diving into muscle charts here. Think of this as creating visual landmarks to build familiarity, which you can use as a base if later on you want to dive deep into anatomy. We're going to start with the clavicle, the sternum, and this neck muscle.
Sternocleidomastoid.
That thing. With just these three, you can already sell a believable upper torso pose. The sternum is that flat bone right in the center of your chest. Think of it as the anchor point for your ribcage, like the front button of a jacket that holds both sides together. It's also where the clavicle connects, so it plays a key role in defining your upper torso structure. Also, on the torso box, we're going to make a cut here. This shape helps better resemble the shape of how the torso actually looks like. This arc will sit about a third from the bottom up, and remember to consider how it will look like or change in form as you see it in different angles. Now going to the clavicle, it connects the center of your chest to the shoulders. It somewhat resembles the shape of a bow or like a bicycle handle, which breaches the torso and the arms. It anchors at the sternum in the middle and extends to the shoulder blades on each side. Not only is it a key structural support, but it also helps define the rhythm and tilt of your upper body in a pose. The sternocleidomastoid is that visible neck muscle that pops out when you turn your head. It connects behind your ear, then runs down diagonally to the clavicle and sternum. I like to think of it as the seatbelt of the neck. It crosses over and helps guide the direction your head is facing. These three landmarks are the first things that I draw after drawing the head, and at the beginning of the drawing, which I usually like to simply suggest with a line, since they're so good at defining a pose right from the get-go. Now, at this point, you can either keep using the box to define the torso in perspective, or if you prefer, switch to the classic X shape that you're probably more familiar with. Either approach works, but I recommend drawing the box first to lock in the perspective, then shaping it into an egg if that's more intuitive for you. Then we're going to add the spine, which connects from the neck down to the pelvis. Now keep in mind that the spine consists of three curves, one that goes inwards for the neck, outwards for the torso, and then inwards again for the pelvis. Also, when viewed from the side, the neck isn't just a straight pillar coming up from the torso, it actually leans forward a little bit, curving out from the back of the ribcage and connected into the base of the skull. It's a subtle but important detail that makes your characters feel more grounded and natural. Now, just below the waist, you'll also find something called the iliac crest, which is this sweeping, curved ridge of the pelvis that flares outward. It's that bony part that you can actually feel yourself right below your belly, and it often shows up as a visible contour in the figure. Now, talking about the back, we got the scapulae or the shoulder blades, which are super important for motion. They move as the arms do, sometimes further than you'd expect. They're always this triangular figure, and you know they're in the right place if the negative space between them looks somewhat like an arrow. And then finally, the spine and the tailbone, which sit at the center of the pelvis and define the backside. Adding this turns your mannequin from blocks and tubes into more of a living structure. At At this point, I want to show you a few simple muscle shapes that I personally use to define the body, especially helpful if you have zero knowledge of anatomy. These aren't hyper accurate, of course, but they're great for getting the look and structure of the body without needing a medical degree. For the chest, I like to think of it like a cape that wraps from the shoulder to the sternum. Let the sternum be what divides it in half, and let its lower part sit just above that curve of the ribcage. Then it's a matter of giving it a little volume on the lower end. For the shoulders, imagine a bicycle helmet wrapping over the joint and attaching before the clavicle ends. Also, the shoulders are going to overlap the cape that we've created for the chest, making the figure look somewhat like this. For the abs, it's a fairly simple transition between the chest and the pelvis. Just divide the area into 4 segments, the top one actually connecting to the shape of the arc of the ribcage. Then you will also have 2 more sets below it of similar size, and a long one that's going to reach to the connection to the pelvis. For the lats, this stretch from the side of the ribcage toward the shoulders. From the back, think of it as them rising from the tailbone to the shoulders. For the arms, picture muscles like a chain. If one bulges out to the side, the next one rotates forward, and this applies no matter the angle you're viewing it from. As for the triceps, they are a bit different. The tendon that connects to the elbow creates a distinct shape. You can think of it as a small rectangular prism inserting into the joint, forming that familiar angular structure at the back of the arm. Now for the forearms, think chicken wings. The muscle forms cross over each other. Now for a very useful tip, I want you to look at your wrists. You see that little bony bulge that protrudes? You can use it as a landmark for you. From the elbow to that bone, it's going to be somewhat of a straight line. This line can help you add the chicken wings on each side of the forearm to make it more believable. Now the hands, they're this simplified block with rectangular fingers. I know a lot of you struggle with this and I'll make a video on them soon, but for now, try practicing this simple shape. Group the fingers like this, the index one alone, the 2 middle fingers together, and then the pinky one. For the thumb, imagine a bulge and 2 small rectangles that come from it. If it's too hard, just draw a blob for now or a shape that suggests the expression. Now for the legs, we're going to start with a diagonal to define the quads, and then the shin or the tibia, which curves from the knee down. And don't forget this line, this really helps you remove that stiffness that you might get from using boxes and cylinders. And then for the fit, as mentioned before, use this wedge shape. Once you add this, your mannequin starts to feel alive, and if the pose is in an angle, always remember that the shape will change a bit too. So it's always good to practice with reference to build that visual library. Now for the back, which can often feel overwhelming, it's actually simpler than it seems. The main landmarks stay the same: the shoulder blades, the spine, the iliac crest, and the tailbone. One thing you'll notice is that the muscles above the shoulder blades, which form that arrow-like shape, help define the figure quite a bit. The lats, stretching from the lower back up to the arms, also take up a large portion of the back's surface. As for the tailbone, it's key for establishing the shape of the butt. If you're not planning to dive deep into anatomy just yet, that's totally fine. For now, try to fill in the torso using the simplified mannequin shapes you already know. Don't stress over identifying every muscle. Just make sure to use references and observe how forms connect. As for the legs, they are fairly straightforward if you want to suggest muscles at a soft division line above the knees for the hamstrings, and the visible bump for the calves on the lower leg. For the feet, the construction stayed the same, just remember you're now seeing them from a different angle. Now, the idea is to draw over the mannequin you've created in however way you want. You might be asking yourself, why even bother with the mannequin when even professional people seem to be skipping it completely? Well, the reason is that this is the base that allows you to draw believable poses in any angle, and these professionals do it inside their heads without the need of sketching it on paper, since this is the first step of drawing from imagination as well. It's very important to remember that you don't have to erase the mannequin completely, you just gotta let it guide you. This is the structure that finally made anatomy click for me, and honestly what made it way more fun too, and I hope it helps you as well. Of course, the anatomy in this video isn't 100% accurate, but that's kind of the point. This is meant more for those who aren't deeply familiar with anatomy yet, or who might feel a bit overwhelmed by it. By giving you a general idea of the shapes that best represent each part of the body without diving deep into anatomy, you'll get more comfortable drawing the human figure in a solid, structured way. That way, when you're ready to tackle anatomy in more detail, it will feel a lot more intuitive and less overwhelming. But anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.